Philippine Mining Club and the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club are professional networking forums bringing industries together and creating opportunities for the Philippine mining and infrastructure and construction industries. Networking is about giving, not taking. It is about forming trust and helping one another toward mutual goals, regularly engaging with your contacts, and finding opportunities to strengthen relationships. Networking is a great opportunity to exchange best practice knowledge, learn about the business techniques of your peers, and stay abreast of the latest industry developments. Opportunities like partnerships, invitations to events, introductions, and giving talks and presentations bring challenges that benefit and feed your career, professional development, and personal interest. Gaining the advice of experienced peers is an important benefit of networking.
Digital engineering is about connecting the present with the future, the digital world with the physical, connecting possibility with reality. Most of all, it's about bringing value to our clients. The projects we work on are exciting and will impact the future of Sydney for years to come, so getting the best outcome calls for working in a smarter way. We aim to have a partnership with our clients. It's not about building something and walking away. It's thinking about an end-to-end solution. What needs can we foresee and how can we put in place a reliable process now that will keep adding value in future? GHD is pioneering workflows which we expect will become industry standards in future. Digital models are built and stored in the cloud for always-on access to teams around the globe. Workflows assign tasks to people, set deadlines and track costs against a work breakdown structure. Multiple disciplines review a federated model at the same time, resulting in better projects that are coordinated, cost-effective, and developed with stakeholder investment in mind. The transparency this offers our clients is extremely powerful in fostering trust and communication. Taking a measure twice, cut once approach saves millions across planning and construction. Changes to a digital model are faster and provide a better coordinated design for our clients. Data and project priorities are thus what drive decision-making. Ultimately, technology is just an enabler for the inspiration that comes from people, and it's the fresh thinking of our staff that we want to support. We want to unlock notions of what's possible and challenge the expectations of what's an acceptable standard. It's a great way for young people starting out in their careers to contribute because the model shows you what will be in lifelike detail. In the same way, it connects clients dynamically with their future project because they can see and interact with it in real time.
Good afternoon, everyone, especially our PICC marketing partners. Welcome to the fourth webinar in the PICC series. And we're extremely fortunate today to have Mr. Emmanuel Rubio, the President and CEO of AboitizPower, as our speaker. My name is Kevin Lewis, and I hope that you all have an enjoyable and informative time with us today. Before we get going, I'd like to mention and thank our valued marketing partners. But without these companies, the webinars will not be possible. We'll start with our supporting partners, Cruz Marcelo and Tena Francia, Austai Geophysical Consultants, the Ollie Consulting Group, and First Metro Securities. Our foundation partners, Site Skills Training. Site Skills Training offer international recruitment and workforce solutions to companies in the construction, mining and processing, oil and gas industries. And our principal partners, Prime BMD, offering their clients services for major infrastructure projects throughout the Philippines and Southeast Asia. Expertise and experience and resources are applied across the industry sectors of transport, water, ports, resources, and the energy sectors. Also, we'd like to mention GHD. GHD has had a permanent presence in the Philippines since 1998, with over 600 professional staff spread across 3 cities in the Philippines. Their main office is in Makati, and 2 branches now in Cebu City and Quezon City. Focused on creating lasting community benefit, GHD leverages on its connected global network of 10,000 employees to provide engineering and environmental management services to key players in the energy and resources sectors. The PICC is also affiliated with the Lighthouse Club Manila and SCHAM, the Australian and New Zealand Chamber of Commerce, and the Philippine Mining Club. Our media partners are the Manila Times and the Philippine Resources and Construction Journal.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ian Lewis, and I'd like to introduce you to our MC today. Ladies and gentlemen, may I say a few words about our MC today. Attorney Leo Dominguez is a recognised figure and friend of the Philippine mining industry and is a man of many talents and responsibilities. A lawyer by training, Leo was previously a partner of Kesum Bing Torres, a member of Baker & McKenzie International, where he headed its energy, mining and infrastructure practice group. He retired from that law firm in 2010 and soon after set up a consulting firm called Ollie Consulting Group, Inc., of which he is president and principal. Ollie Consulting Group, Inc. provides high-level advice on strategy, finance and business development in the industries of agriculture, mining, infrastructure, renewable energy, food, beverage and packaging, and hospitality and tourism, amongst others. Ladies and gentlemen, I will now hand you over to our MC, Attorney Leo Dominguez. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian, for that very, very warm introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the 4th webinar of the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club. I understand that we have 179 participants that have registered to be with us today. And I understand also that there can be about 200 more that are watching us on Facebook. So those of you who are watching us on Facebook, good afternoon as well. Before we proceed to our speakers, there are a few things that I wish to highlight. We will be issuing a certificate of attendance to the attendees this afternoon. Those of you who wish to obtain a copy, you may please contact Ms. Joan Falcutella. For your questions addressed to our speaker, please type them in the Q&A and chat box at the bottom of the screen. I will then read them out to our speakers after his presentation during the Q&A. We will hold the Q&A after our speakers have made their presentations. To provide us with a stock watch, we have a financial analyst who is working to educate clients of the stockbroker firm First Metro Securities. He used to teach finance in college for undergraduates and for Masters of Business Administration students. Ladies and gentlemen, coming from Australia, where he now resides, and to present his stock watch, I now present to you our speaker and friend, Sandy Gilles.
And they receive the information that will guide them in deciding whether to buy more of the shares or to wait a while. So right at the moment, the majority owners own 80% and the free float or the minority owners have 20%. And those are the ones traded in the stock exchange. The company has an investor relations department which update the shareholders on what's new, what's happening, how are the projects, how are the contracts, how is sales and profits, and what are the prospects for cash dividends. Now, the par value of the shares is 1 peso per share. For many companies, they start with 1 peso per share. And then the current market value is around 31 pesos per share. The par value is similar to the book value of a real estate property when you buy a piece of land or a house and you put it on your books as an asset, then the purchase price is recorded as book value. It's on the books as an asset. And then the market value of that real estate property is free to move up depending on the demand from potential buyers. So similar to par value, it's started as 1 peso per share, but because the company is profitable, then there is demand for those shares because they are nice shares that pay a cash dividend. So there is a lot of people who would want to buy those shares, and so they bid up the price of the stock. Accordingly, you can see here on the page that the AboitizPower shares were recently at 20 pesos 0.50 and also recently hit the high of 29.80. But the most recent high has been 31. It seems that if you look back a few years, then it got as high as 48. And that came all the way from 4 pesos per share back in 2008. Went all the way up to 24, 36, 48, came down to 23, and then now it's up to 31. That's been the movement since the past 13 or so years. But in the last so many months, since July of last year, the share price has been moving from 29 down to 25, up again to 27, down to 23, and then a big spurt up to 31. All right, so we're looking forward to hear from the company what were the latest developments and what are their future plans. The share price reached a high of 31.30, which is now the current price, and the lowest price recently was 23. Okay, we buy the stock not just for the price moving up, but because there's a cash dividend. So that means that out of profits, some of the profits are given to shareholders. In the case of AboitizPower, they decide to give half the profits every year to the shareholders as a cash dividend. These profits come from the sales minus the costs minus the tax equals net profits, and then half are given out to shareholders. So in a sample year, if profits are 12 billion, then cash dividend is 50% of those profits. Therefore, if it's 6 billion, 6 out of the 12 will be paid out to shareholders. And if a person owns 5,000 shares, then he gets the cash dividends. And if the cash dividend is 1 peso per share, then he stands to receive 5,000 pesos in cash dividends for that year. The dividend yield is the cash dividend per share divided by the price per share. You can also understand it as if you have a 100 peso investment in AboitizPower, then the company gives you dividends worth approximately 3 or 4 pesos per year. So that's why you say the dividend yield is 3 or 4% per year. That's the cash dividend divided by the share price, or the money that you receive in dividends divided by your investment of buying the stock at that current share price. Now, the share price has been moving up 8% per year since 2011, and so that's 8% on the share price movement. If you add cash dividends of 4%, then 8 plus 4 would give you 12% per year. Right. Thank you for listening. I have been Alexander Gilles of carillonpartners.net. Visit my Facebook page on Basics on Stocks and Investing. Thank you and good day.
Thank you very much, Sandy. It's good to see you from way down under. Last month, AboitizPower announced that it was allocating 190 billion pesos to develop 3,700 megawatts of new renewable energy projects in the next decade. The investment will help the firm achieve its goal of beefing up its clean energy portfolio, which is expected to comprise a bigger share, or 50%, of its power generation portfolio by 2030. It gives me pleasure to say a few words about our speaker, who will hopefully explain to us what this is all about. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of AboitizPower Corporation. As such, he is at the helm of AboitizPower's growth strategy to significantly grow its generation portfolio in the next 10 years, resulting in a 50-50 balance between clean energy, or Cleanergy. That's something that they have coined. Clean energy or renewable energy and thermal capacities by the year 2030. This strategy is fully supportive of the Philippine government's efforts to build the country's renewable energy market and of the global sustainability goals. With his proven leadership, our guest speaker has held and currently holds various executive positions in other AboitizPower-owned companies and subsidiaries. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Management Engineering with minor in Mechanical Engineering from the De La Salle University, Manila, and completed his master's degree in Business Administration at the same university. He holds an executive certificate in directorship from the Singapore Management University, Singapore Institute of Directors, and finished the advanced management program and the lead program at Columbia University and INSEAD. Ladies and gentlemen, to speak to us on powering a sustainable future with Cleanergy, may I present the President and Chief Executive Officer of AboitizPower Corporation, Mr. Emmanuel V. Rubio.
Thank you. Thank you, Leo. Thank you also for the warm introduction, and good afternoon to everyone watching in live in Facebook and whatever medium this webinar is available. So, well, thank you very much to start with to the organizers of today's event for this opportunity to share AboitizPower's story of powering a sustainable future with Cleanergy, our brand of renewable energy. Now, the Philippines' renewable energy market has never been more dynamic and competitive than it is today. And we are seeing a strong growth momentum going forward. We're very bullish about the energy industry in the next 10 years. The rapid renewable energy development in the country was catapulted by two landmark policies, the Electric Power and Industry Reform Act of 2001, or EPIRA, and the Renewable Energy Act of 2008. In recent years, the government has been pushing for renewable energy even further through subsequent regulations to encourage more investments in this field. We at AboitizPower are very much excited and looking forward to the continued development of renewable energy in the country. We have been in the RE space as early as the 1970s, beginning with our small run-of-river hydro plants, then later on expanding to include large hydros, geothermal, and solar facilities. We have been committed to RE right at the onset of our investments in power generation. This commitment has paved the way for AboitizPower, together with our partners, to become the Philippines' largest owner and operator of renewable energy today based on installed capacity. With a strong track record in building, operating, and managing RE plants, we have become the Cleanergy partner of choice of businesses and organizations that are looking to shift to more environmentally friendly energy sources. These include some of them, Nestle, Wells Fargo, and NEO, among others, across several industries. Our Cleanergy capacity is also being delivered to various communities all over the Philippines. Our partners' trust and confidence in AboitizPower continue to be our inspiration for helping build a better, more sustainable world for all of us today and for future generations. Over the next decade, we are exponentially increasing our Cleanergy portfolio from about 900 megawatts today to 4,600 megawatts. That's an additional 3,700 megawatts of RE capacities in support of our country's RE aspirations and our contribution to the global RE targets. We can go beyond that when there are opportunities in other fields. We are cognizant of the call for decarbonization. We welcome and fully support it. However, we have to understand that fully shifting to renewable energy will not happen overnight. For a developing country like the Philippines, thermal energy sources, specifically coal for the Philippines, remains to be the most economical, viable option. As one of the Philippines' largest power producers, we are well positioned and committed to supporting the growth of renewable energy in the country. But at the same time, we have the responsibility to ensure that our energy supply remains sufficient and competitive. There is no one single technology that can address all our energy requirements. So we are taking a pragmatic approach to serving our energy needs while pursuing environmental sustainability. There has to be a transition. Our country's transition to renewable energy will not be without challenges, but the assurance that we can give is that we are one with the power industry in this journey towards a cleaner and more sustainable national energy mix. Our Cleanergy strategy is well in place to support this. We have earmarked around 190 billion pesos for our investments in the next 10 years. As of August 2021, we have already identified close to 2,900 megawatts of new RE projects across the country, all in varying stages of development. One of the priority projects to accelerate our RE growth is an ongoing project that we have, a 74 megawatt solar power plant in Kayanga, Bugalyon, Pangasinan, which we will start building in the fourth quarter of 2021. Other RE projects that we are also exploring include ground-mounted solar, floating solar, wind and battery storage systems, and expansions of our existing RE plants. We have also recently completed the commissioning of 2 wind met masts in Pangasinan, through which we are currently gathering resource data, such as temperature, wind speed, wind density, wind direction, among others. This is to estimate the energy production and understand the suitability of these sites. Right? We expect to complete met masts data gathering for this year. And then we will be deciding if we will be breaking ground next year in these 2 sites. We're also working on our 20 megawatt battery energy storage project in detailed feasibility study for our floating solar project in Magat, in Isabela. A key driver of our Cleanergy growth is AboitizPower's continued commitment to being sustainable, being a sustainable organization. I'm very pleased to share that for the 4th year in a row, AboitizPower has again made it to the FTSE for Good Index series with a higher overall rating versus the previous year. We have increased our scores in metrics on biodiversity, climate change, health and safety, labor standards, anti-corruption, and risk management. As we continue to work towards providing reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy, we are committed to further strengthening our ESG standards and practices, sustaining our strong partnerships with our stakeholders, and creating positive long-term impact for future generations. The projects that we have just shared with you mark only the beginning of our road to 9,200 megawatts by 2030, consisting of 4,600 megawatts of renewable energy, bringing our portfolio to 50% thermal and 50% renewable energy. We recognize that there are still challenges ahead, brought about not only by global health crisis, but if all of us, the private sector and government and even consumers, work on the power through this together, then we can build a more sustainable future for everyone. With that, maraming salamat, and I'm ready to entertain your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rubio. We have a few questions that have come in, and let me read to you the first one from Peter Wallace. And his question is, what do you think about nuclear power?
Thank you. I think that's a very good question, and I've had a number of discussions with this topic with Peter. No, I think nuclear is a really viable option for a country like the Philippines, especially now that they are. I think they come in much smaller packages, no, and in ways, no, easier to actually contain nuclear wastes. However, I think there's still stigma, right, on nuclear energy as far as the country is concerned, that it will be a challenge to really kickstart any efforts with regard to nuclear. We believe that if nuclear would be an option moving forward, there will have to be a huge support from the government, or if not, if PIRA will allow it, for actually government to actually start that project and to make sure that to address all the issues that are probably would be associated with regard to development of a nuclear facility.
Thank you for that. We do have the Bataan nuclear power plant that has been mothballed, but I understand from attending several let's put it this way, several pre-COVID I forget what did you call webinars before?
Forums.
Yeah, forums. Yeah, I've already forgotten the use of that word. But there seems to be a lot of positive support for reopening that power plant, and there's assurance, of course, that that can be done safely. Anyway, it's something I guess we all have to wait.
Yeah,
And
I've been
see.
to some, and I've heard the DOE and even NPC actually came up with positions supporting the rehabilitation of Bataan nuclear power plant. I think at one point they were really pushing it with some sponsorships, I guess from Korean entities at that time, if I remember it correctly. You know? So I'm not sure where it is today, but as I said, no, I think there are actually a number of the technology has changed, has evolved. That there are nuclear power plants that would probably be much more competitive and much less complex than I think rehabilitating Bataan, if nuclear would be an option of the future.
Yeah, and significantly cleaner than coal. Yeah. We have another question from someone called Willie Barcelo. And he says, when will geothermal fields in Malinaw start producing electricity?
The geothermal fields in Malinaw, if I'm not mistaken, actually the service contract is with the Philippine Geothermal, not with us. I think they're the ones exploring, so I cannot actually really answer that question. It's a separate entity, but we're aware that a service contract, I believe, has been awarded to Philippine Geothermal.
There's a question that's come in. It seems to be anonymous. Why have you decided to transition, given your heavy investments in coal? Do you see it as the future? Do you intend to retire from coal plants completely?
Okay, that's a very good question, and a question that's often asked of me, and when we have this, But first, I'd like to give or provide a perspective of our portfolio. The Philippines is a developing country, and coal is today still is the most economical and economically viable option. And for us also to meet the energy needs of the country, it's reliable and cost-effective, cost-competitive. And over the last 10 years, we have seen considerable increase in baseload demand. And this demand was actually met with coal supply, not just by Aboitiz, but also by a number of other players. We are committed to supporting the country's economic growth by ensuring that we have adequate and affordable energy. But even with our baseload portfolio, consisting mostly of coal, although of course we have also geothermal, we have always been pushing for environmental sustainability. In fact, for our coal plants that we manage and operate today, we ensure that these are actually fully compliant with applicable environmental regulations, and we invest in technologies that significantly reduce our carbon footprint for our coal assets. The transition is in recognition, of course, of the situation. Climate change is upon us, right? But instead of mitigation, I think the right thing to do is really to adapt. And the country has made commitments under the Paris Accord, the COP21. We've made aggressive commitments, although conditional, and we have to work together with the government to achieve this commitments. We know that our coal assets are actually exposed to having insurance increases in insurance premiums, and we're seeing it. No new coal plants probably can be built because of lack of financing, right? But I think the existing ones, the country will continue to need them. And I was asked about 2 or 3 days ago, and I said maybe the life expectancy of these coal plants, including the new ones, will probably will be needed in the next 20 to 25 years, given that the country will continue to need reliable and affordable power. Now, of course, if there is a greener option, right, and we're always on the lookout for greener option. If a combination of a variable renewable energy coupled with an energy storage that can supply electricity 24 hours and cost competitive, then I guess that's the tipping point, no? And that's the time then that we have to make a decision to whether to stop using coal or use them for some specific purpose, no? And we are looking at that, no? We are actually now at the moment crafting our net our vision for the future. You know, maybe a lot of entities have come up with visions for 2020, 2040. They call it the net zero vision. We are crafting one. We will be ready to release this in the next few months. But we are going to make sure that whatever vision we come up with is something that we can live with, something that we can execute, and something that we can commit to.
Thank you very much. I have a question from my friend Graham Deegan. And he says, out of solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal, which type will lead the way for Aboitiz?
Well, you know, we own the largest hydros in the country, no? Magat, Ambuklao, Binga. We have expanded this plants since we were able to acquire these assets from the government with the privatization, no, of these assets from PICC. And currently, I think the capacity that we're getting out of this facility is around 700, close to 700 megawatts. And then, of course, geothermal, no? Our geothermal plants today are producing around 300 to 310 megawatts with a plan to increase it up to 340 to 350. Now, of course, the path of least resistance, I would say, you know, in growing RE would really be either through solar or wind, you know? It's if you have land, then you can actually build solar. But the key here is really being able to evacuate the capacity of the plants that you're building. So whenever we build or whenever we buy land to build solar or to build wind, where the resources are actually very location specific, we need to make sure that we can also evacuate the capacity and that there's transmission from NGCP that we can use, no, in order to get these capacities out, right? So having said that, I guess we are excited about our projects in solar. We have land banked quite a sizable acreage to house our solar projects in the future. Out of the 2,900 megawatts that are in our pipeline, a significant portion of that is actually solar. But having said that, again, right, I think what we need to understand is that you know, there will be a limit, I would think, no, on how much solar penetration or solar development that we can handle as a country. We don't have deserts. Most of our land are actually arable. That anytime you convert land for a solar facility, you probably are taking it away from food production. So I think you know, maybe in the next few years or in the next up to the next 10 years, this will be a conversation. I'm sure there will also be social issues that will come out of it. No? We're addressing one issue, an environmental issue, but let's make sure that we're also addressing potential issues that will come out of this endeavor.
You talk about food production, and what occurs to me is this, you know, if you have floating solar, you could actually have fish pens and hydroponics right under it.
Exactly, Leo.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to be a little creative, no?
Yes, we are actually. We have proven. We have completed our feasibility, our pilot project in Magat. We own the power plant, and NIA actually owns the reservoir, but we already have an agreement with NIA for us to be able to put solar facilities, floating solar. But the issue with floating solar and the technology that we use, we've proven that it can handle Philippine typhoon grades, right? Because you know, most of the design actually is floating on pontoons, right? So all of a sudden, when you have a 210, 230 kilometer per hour wind and goes under it, I think you can say goodbye to your to your solar panels. No? What we have is actually a floating solar that floats on the water. That there's no space between the water. It's a Norwegian technology, and we're ready to execute that project within the next 6 months.
Well, that's very interesting. I was thinking maybe heavy anchors. Yeah. maybe the Aboitiz shipping guys have have a few major anchors that used to keep their ships down. I have another question. How will renewable energy impact the stock market? Most traditional power producers always have a PSA to guarantee that the investment they will make will be bought. Have you considered that you need PSAs for renewable energy, or you can actually have renewable energy that does not rely on PSAs?
Good question. We would like to have a PSA, of course, when we make investments. At least it will assure you of cash flows given the duration of the supply agreement, right? But DOE, in order to invite investors, right, to invest in renewable energy, has developed a program called Green Energy Auction Pricing, right? We have a program under the renewable energy law, which is called Renewable Portfolio Standards, where distribution utilities, retail electricity suppliers have to buy at least 1%. Today, it's at least 1% of their energy requirements from renewable energy. Okay, and so when that requirement, it's already in effect. So that's where the demand is coming from. So to feed that demand, so there has to be supply, and what DOE came up with is a green energy auction pricing, and they will be setting a notice or coming up with an invite. If I'm not mistaken, again, about 2,000 megawatts will be up for offer. Anyone who would like to participate, bid on the 2,000 megawatts that will be offered, and that will be the ones that will be used to service the requirements for the renewable portfolio standards, where distribution utilities can get their supply for renewable energy. Yes, and then if you don't participate, I guess you can also now go ahead and contract direct with utilities that would be looking for green energy outside of the green energy auction pricing. And there are also now, of course, under the IPIRA, customers that are allowed to buy energy direct from generators under the open access rule. And we have a number of those already, and they're opting for green. Companies like I mentioned earlier, Nestle, right, or NEO, all the buildings, they're looking at buying green, and that's also another route. But yes, we're looking for PSAs. We're looking for power supply agreements, and other than supply agreements, we are also going to participate in the green energy auction pricing that DOE will be coming up with. I would think around Q1 of 2022.
But will your policy be to have a PSA for every green energy project that you put up, or you're willing to go without it?
As much as we can, we would like to have it contracted, through a long-term agreement. We don't want to have an open position. Although maybe in the short term, we'll probably see, because of the current the forecast of supply, in the market, you might want to have or up for an open position. But we would like to secure contracts whenever we make investments, whether it's renewable energy or gas in the future, right? Because we are saying that our next option for baseload today, the most valuable would be gas, and then we're saying that we're eyeing the auction that Meralco would be coming up with, that they will require delivery in 2030, and we will participate in that using gas as an option today, unless, of course, there's a greener option and a more competitive option that will come our way, or that will be available before the bid. I think that will happen in maybe late 2026 or early 2027. Sorry, late 2022 or 2023.
Yeah, speaking of options, have you heard that bamboo briquettes and pellets can actually be used to substitute up to 50% of the fuel requirements of coal-fired plants? Is that something that your guys are willing to look into?
You know, Leo, I'm first time I've heard of bamboo briquettes and pellets being announced, but of course, no, it has calorific value once you turn them into coal. No? But there is there are certain standards for boilers, no? Certain calorific values that we have to maintain, and of course, there's emission that will also have an impact on emissions on sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, right? So we can do a study, but the choice today of our of the coal that we're using are based on what is being specified by the OEMs, the boiler manufacturers, and of course compliance to the emission standards set by the Department of Environment. No. Yeah, if that can be an option, we're willing to take a look at it.
Yeah, as you might be aware, the DNR, the DA, the DTI, the DOST are behind, and together with the mining industry, are behind the big push to plant and of course utilize bamboo. And if that supply becomes available, you know, it's something that that the power companies by relying on coal could look into, because one of the benefits, other than what I am told, I'm a lawyer, not a scientist, that it has high calorific value, probably in certain instances higher than coal. And I've actually spoken to a traditional coal-fired plant owner, and I asked the question, if it became available and it cost a little more than, say, coal, would you consider it? He said, yeah, as long as scientifically it can work, I don't mind paying a little more, because at the end of the day, the beneficiaries of that higher price are Filipinos. And we don't have to send it to Indonesia for their Kalimantan coal, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the operative word that you use is if scientifically, right? So again, you know, if it can meet the calorific value requirements of the boilers, why not, right? And if the emissions can also be managed, because I guess the emission profile of bamboo would be different from the coal, no? Probably even lower in SO2 or SOx or NOx. I'm not sure. Yeah. So, but we can check.
Yeah, let's not labor over this too much. But as you know, that bamboo is actually carbon neutral, because as it is growing, it absorbs. Okay.
You know.
And of course, you burn it, like it will burn like coal, but at least it absorbs it on its way up. So it's carbon neutral, and therefore something that might be that the coal-fired plant companies might consider is to offset maybe the higher price by carbon credits.
And we have planted giant bamboos in our watersheds.
Okay.
Especially in Isabela.
And
huge tracks.
And you have carbon sinks. So
yes. It's a requirement. Yeah.
You might marry the two, right? I mean, you plant your own. So,
and that's what we're using.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. But it's an interesting question. I have another question from someone called Domingo Ramos Jr. Considering that there are steam reservoir limitations in some geothermal power plants like Tiwi and Macban that limits the capacity output, how is Aboitis addressing this?
I think first of all, the steam limitation for geothermals is not just in Tiwi and Macban. I guess all the general characteristic of a geothermal well is that it is going to deteriorate in terms of pressure, and volume through time. We're seeing this. We're seeing the deterioration in output from the time we took over up to now. But we continue to our steam provider PGPC, Philippine Geothermal. We have an agreement for them to continue drilling for wells, and we have a specific target of for them to deliver 50 megawatts of additional steam capacity, the equivalent of 50 megawatts steam from drilling new wells. And so far, they've drilled 5, and we're already on those 5 wells are delivering actually higher than expectations. So that's the plan as far as Tiwi and Macban are concerned. But yes, that's a characteristic of geothermal. It will lose capacity through time.
I have a question from John Forbes of AmCham. With all the need for solar and wind renewable energy as fast as possible in the country, can we eliminate the provision in the IRR that limit foreign investors to 40%? Europe is the world leader in offshore wind energy, and the Philippines could welcome their companies to invest here. Do you agree?
I would agree. Let's open it to competition, but it's not. I guess I have no control of the regulations. But I guess people need to lobby, and if that will mean more investments in renewable energy, and the country can enjoy supply, to meet the growing demand, we'd support that.
Yeah, I mean, I find it really difficult to understand when we're talking about the use of natural resources, particularly in wind, solar. You're not consuming. It's not like minerals in the ground where you actually consume it. You take it out, right? And yet mining has allowed 100% foreign ownership. And yet wind is there, whether or not you tap it or not. It's not something you put in a bank, right? It will go. It's here now. It will dissipate tomorrow. And sunlight is the same. I mean, why are we limiting ownership to 60%? Yes, it's a natural resource, but it's there. If it's not consumed, it doesn't do anything. So
I think
I just say that as a comment.
Yeah. And this discussion is happening as we speak in DOE. There are a number of people actually raising this as a concern, and hopefully an improvement to the regulations.
Yeah. There's I guess a controversial question. A few days ago, I came across an article that says, "Who is profiting from the power outages?"
Well, that's a very good question. I'd really like to answer that.
Oh, you would? Okay, but
yes.
let me just read a few lines from there so that the audience get a bit of a flavor. It says, in the normal course of business, lower demand combined with lower supply, subject to price caps, means lower revenue and even losses. However, despite extended outages experienced by coal power plants and lower demand due to the pandemic, many power companies with coal portfolios managed to perform extremely well. A power company reported its income leaped by 171% to more than 10 billion pesos, while another reported a 270% increase of 4 billion consolidated net income for the second quarter versus 2020. Other generation companies reported similar marked improvements in their financial performance. How does that happen? I mean, you see the public gets less power because there's outages, but yet the baseload coal-fired plants make a tremendous profit. So I'm glad you want to answer that question.
Yes, actually, well, Leo, it's not a question that was just asked at me today. It's being asked every time there are outages, from Congress hearings to Senate hearings. Because every time we have an outage, resin prices will spike, right? And there will be investigation, and and it has been audited, checked, quite significantly, and the output of the studies show the same thing, that the outages are actually not something that is unwanted. You have to take into consideration also the age of the current plants that we have in the Philippines, specifically the bigger ones, coal. No, we are the administrator for Pagbilao, 600 megawatts in Pagbilao, Quezon, owned and operated by Team Energy. They also own and operate Swal, at 1,200 megawatts in Pangasinan, and the administrator of Swal is actually San Miguel. These are getting very close to the end of the cooperation period, meaning the IPP agreement with the government. Pagbilao, I know, is going to end in 2025. So these are quite old plants, and we are actually now preparing to do work with replacement, and we're calling it half-lifing the facilities, so that when we take over these facilities in 2026, we can expect them to.
My signal is dropping. I can hear, but I cannot access anymore the chat box. Hello,
Okay.
can you hear me? I'm
Yes, I can
calling
hear you,
on
Leo.
help from Job, our organizer, because I can't. I have a very low signal. So, Job, can you continue by asking the questions that are coming in until I get better
Okay.
here?
Okay, sir. No problem, sir.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just continue. So again, at the end of the day, these plants are. You mentioned earlier, Leo. Do you prefer to have contracts with these investments? Of course, right? And these plants are all contracted, probably 100% contracted, because they're baseload plants. So every time these plants are down, the owner of the plant will have to buy from WESM, right, at prices most probably higher than what they are supplying their customers for. So they lose money, right? Now this thing about making billions of pesos. I guess the question is, how much money did these generators actually have invested in these facilities? Right. So
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess that's a
Thank you.
question. That's yeah.
Go ahead, Attorney Leo. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead. I have a low signal and I cannot access my Q&A box, so I'm asking Job, the organizer, to read out the questions. Please go
Okay.
ahead.
I'll continue, sir. Okay. I'm reading from the notes here. Okay, so we have one from Mr. Roger Dimmel. Any thought about using a hybrid fast-growing bamboo species to generate bamboo biocoal to fire your coal plants in the interim?
Say that. Can you say that again? Can you repeat that, please?
Okay. Any thought about using a hybrid fast-growing bamboo species to generate bamboo biocoal to fire your coal plants in the interim? This is from Mr. Roger Dimmel.
Yeah, I think I answered this. We had a discussion earlier, on bamboo. Something that we have not actually really studied in detail, but we'll do that. If it's a viable option and not rely on Kalimantan for our fuel, we would, as long as we can actually get the desired specification in order to for our boiler to actually operate efficiently. We'll take that into consideration. I'll check that.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for that. I don't know if this one has already been answered. From Jerome Padua. Good day, sir. Any recommendation for source of renewable energy other than hydroelectric power in mountainous area like Cordillera?
Cordilleras.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think there are actually entities that are testing certain sites for the Cordilleras with regard to wind. We don't, right? Our wind service contracts are in a different location. It would be difficult for solar to actually be efficient and operate in the Cordilleras. But please note, the limitation actually is not just location, it's the availability of the resource, like solar. So for example, hydro. No, if you want to put up a hydro, of course, it's within a certain portion of the waterways. If you're going to put a wind farm, it's in a location where the wind resource is available. But the thing to ask is that, can you actually transmit the energy that will come out from those plants? No, so grid accessibility should also be considered. And this is actually one of the constraints in development of RE, no? Where RE is available, in some cases, grid connection is not, right? So, and this is something that the grid operator, the generator, Department of Energy has been trying to work on, no? To make sure that we can work together to make sure that if there's a resource available, that we can actually transmit and generate power.
Thank you, sir. We have one question here and from Anonymous. Why are you going to the clean energy site, and how long do you plan to keep the coal assets operating? I don't know if this has been answered already, sir.
Yeah, I think the why I've answered, but this is not the first time we're going to clean energy. We have been in clean energy, as I said, since the 70s. We're the first developers of run-of-river hydros. We have together with our partners, our JV partners, we have the largest capacity for renewable energy, nameplate capacity. So I guess the just further growing our renewable energy portfolio is just going to transition in making sure that we address the climate change issue, no? and to address our risk exposure to coal, because there will be a time. It's just a matter of time. The question is when. There will be a time when we will have to not to rely on thermal sources for baseload like coal, but we have to have a viable alternative. That's the key.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I have one here, another from Anonymous. Have our coal plants fulfilled its role as base loads by operating at regular and planned start and stops? We understand DOE has a 32 to 45 unavailability day standard for coal plants per year. How have our coal plants performed?
I think we've had outages, no? In middle of this year, I think we've seen Western prices spike because some of the baseload plants went down, no? Particularly the largest one, Swal, that's online, but it's up and running now, and we should be expecting these plants to be going down once in a while. No, forced outages is technical realities of operating machineries. No? Hindi naman every time that you take your car out, you won't have problems. No? So coal plants also will experience problems one way or the other. In AboitizPower, what we've done is that we've embarked on a digital journey where we can do predictive analytics. No? Hopefully foresee or forecast when our plant's going to go down. We're operating digital models. We have actually a digital twin system in our major base loads, no? To address these issues moving forward, and see if we can also make it more efficient, no? Through understanding, through analytics, no? If we can actually keep on pushing our plans to get more out of it, no? Without actually putting it at risk. And this digital initiative that we have is paying dividends, no? Especially on our plants in Davao and Visayas.
Thank you, Job. My signal has improved, so I can now go on to read a very interesting question that came from Cliff Lanas of PBE Rutherford Pte Limited, Singapore. We've been discussing energy generations in the country, whether done by the government or by private sectors. But in the eyes of the consumer, what is the forward impact of these energy sources on the cost of electricity, if explained in layman's terms? How will it correlate year by year?
If you when IPIRA was enacted, no, and government actually got out of the generation business, I think we've seen a significant growth in capacity, huge growth in capacity, no, and I don't have the number, but at least there are like 40 players in major generators competing in the market, no, probably even more than that. Peter Wallace I used to be with Peter Wallace as board members in WESM, and I think WESM is a very good indicator of how competitive the market is. Unless we have outages, no, WESM prices are actually quite low, very low, right? But when you have spikes, no, and you will have spikes when you have outages, no, and that should actually be a trigger for investors to make the call, no, to invest on new capacities. And that's why we've always told, well, we've taken a position that the secondary price caps imposed during these spikes actually masks the true cost of power. You know? That it might actually not allow for signals, no, that new capacity is actually needed. Having said that, we are actually commissioning 1,336 megawatts of new capacity from our plant in Bataan. No? 668 is actually now available and running, and by February we'll be commissioning another 668. So we expect supply in 2022 to be stable, no? And as long as, of course, the other baseload plants, no, continue running, and we will have outages, but as long as they're not at all at the same time, I think we have a quite a healthy supply moving in the next 18 to 24 months.
Thank you for that. I have an interesting comment, and they're asking to hear from you if you're willing to take it on. Many studies indicate, and I've heard this discussion before, that what is dubbed as green energy is not green after all. For instance, number one, building wind turbines and solar panels to generate electricity, as well as batteries to fuel electric vehicles, requires, on average, more than 10 times the quantity of materials compared with building machines using hydrocarbons to deliver the same amount of energy to society. Number two, replacing hydrocarbons with green machines under current plans will vastly increase the mining of various critical minerals around the world. For example, a single electric car battery weighing 1,000 pounds requires extracting and processing some 500,000 pounds of materials. Averaged over a battery's life, each mile of driving an electric car consumes 5 pounds of earth. Using an internal combustion engine consumes about 0.2 pounds of liquids per mile. So I mean, it's a conundrum, right?
It's a very good question, and I'd like to ask that because I have also my views, right? You know, at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, there's no one quick fix solution, right? You just have to make sure that you have the what is the best available. No, I totally agree, right? All of the solar power, all of the solar panels, no, that are installed today, in 15 years, 20 years, you have to dispose of them because of loss of efficiency. And these are electronic wastes, right? There are already discussions, go to the internet, there are already concerns being expressed on how to dispose these solar panels, no? And these are just the current ones that are installed. How about the growth? No? So yes, the same issue with wind blades, no? The plastics, the carbon made of carbon and resin. So that's also a huge concern. And yes, batteries, no. In fact, I was telling my team members that if there is going to be a solution, no, for a 24/7 renewable energy, so that would be a variable supply coming from, say, solar or wind, and huge capacity to charge the batteries, no? but you have to put huge batteries to huge capacities of batteries to go through the cycle when you are not producing solar and wind. So those countries that are being mined for cobalt, right, that are a main input to lithium-ion batteries, I don't know how those countries will look like if demand for batteries are actually met. And the thinking that a combination of variable renewable energy plus batteries can actually replace as a plug-in replacement existing baseload plants. That's why there has to be we're calling it transition. You cannot just switch on and switch off, right? We need to understand the implications of all of these. But what is obvious today is that we need to address issues in climate change. So, and that's the immediate problem that we are resolving.
Yeah, we've heard this comment also in the mining industry, where if we were going to go into electric vehicles, a car the size of an Altis, for instance, if you convert the engine to an electric vehicle, you will need 500 pounds of copper. Right? Because you have to conduct that electricity throughout the car.
I know.
So if you know, here we are trying to push electric vehicles, we can't say no to mining. What are we gonna do? Right? So yeah, we're gonna have to balance these things out. And there's no sure answer for all of this. No, we just have to figure out as we go along. Anyways, we probably have enough time for a couple more questions. I asked Job, are we on schedule?
Yes, sir. Probably a couple of more questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Here's an interesting question, and it deals with indigenous people. What are the actions of AboitizPower if indigenous peoples are to be displaced in replace of their renewable energy plants?
Again, very good question. No? I guess before you actually can put or execute a project in places where there are indigenous peoples, no, within the domain of the indigenous peoples, you need, as our partners in the mining industry know in the call, no? You need to have free prior informed consent, right? So without that, you cannot execute the project anyway. So if displacement is a major concern and there's no agreement with the indigenous peoples that are registered to be the main owners, right, of that area, then for us, there's no project.
Yeah, I guess the impact of that is when you create what you call this dams.
Yes. Can I just highlight? And I was about to highlight that. No? When we took over Ambuklao and Binga, which are from the government, no, built in the late 50s, early 60s, there had been issues that had been brewing, no, since the onset of the construction of Ambuklao and Binga dams. No? When we took over in 2000, when we took over in 2008, 2008, the indigenous peoples, no, the descendants of the first generation that had issues with the owners then, and PICC, we're looking forward to having this resolved since there's a new owner, and well, those issues remain with because we don't own the reservoir, we only own the power plant. But we made sure that we actually are welcomed by the community. We have implemented a process, no, that was even recognized by the Harvard University Kennedy School of Government as a template or a model on how to manage disputes, no, with indigenous peoples. It's actually in YouTube. I could send you the link, and that has been used as a model, no, for other projects that have been privatized by PISAM. So yeah, we recognize the rights. I think basically you have to recognize the rights, no, and they do have the rights. and respect them. And I guess at the end of the day, it's really trust and respect, between parties that make this project successful.
I've lost a question. I saw it a while ago. They're very interesting, and it had to do with Laguna de Bay. And my sense
solar?
of it was, that floating solar and Laguna de Bay, there seems to be
Okay.
some kind of an issue. Okay, are you familiar with it? And then maybe you
No,
can...
we don't have a service. I'm already expecting that there would be. That's why we didn't even consider Laguna Bay as an area where we should be applying service contracts for. You'd be competing with fish pens, I would think. We didn't even investigate. It's just, I said, it's just going to be too difficult. We have our own reservoirs in Magat, Abuklaw, and Binga anyway.
Yeah.
Let's focus on those, right? So
There's one word for that, magulo.
Magulo, yeah.
Too many prior rights that are
Exactly.
are in space. Okay. I guess one last question. Can you share more details about the floating solar that will be launched in the next 6 months? Is this an expansion of the existing project in Isabela?
Yeah, and the existing project is only a pilot, no, small, close to 300 kilowatts actually, but it's
small.
just one. It's one pad, right? So what we're going to do is just multiply the pads, right? It's not going to be launched, but we are going to start the feasibility study in order to prepare for the tendering process. But what we have proven is that this technology, a solar film that floats on water, without a gap between the film and the water, actually can withstand typhoons that pass through Isabela. We've tested it with I think with one or at least two. So it worked.
Okay. There's there's a comment
Okay.
from Bobby Tinsay of Bukidnon, and he's a fellow bamboo warrior. He says, the Philippine Mining Bamboo Program can complement clean energy. Great way to balance mining and energy. So,
we'll see.
Anyway.
We'll study that. We'll study that.
That's interesting because, it's a new way of engaging.
Yeah.
And to overcome, all of these complaints about coal not being the energy that we should be continuing to use because of,
Surely,
what it does. But if there's an attempt to actually modify it, why not? Right?
Yep. And as I said, we have a lot of bamboo in our watersheds. That's what we planted for.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, Mr. Rubio, thank you so much for your time.
Salamat,
I think we've had a great conversation and a lot of good insights. This discussion should continue. So maybe one of these days we'll call you again and see where you're at, because you're
looking forward to it. Yeah, thank you.
You're developing
thank you for
projects.
the opportunity.
Yeah, and maybe you would like to hear how they're going.
Yep.
So I will now take this opportunity to thank you once again very much, Mr. Rubio. Your presentation has been very, very enlightening and educational. I now close the Q&A, and we'll be making a few announcements. Number one, we will issue certificates of attendance to attendees. Request a copy from our Miss Joan Falcutela. Our next speakers for the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club and the Philippine Mining Club webinars will be announced in our numerous social media platforms and in our newsletters. Upcoming Philippine Mining Club presentations next week on September 24, Friday. Philippine Mining Club will have S&P Global Market Intelligence talk on S&P Global Market Intelligence's introduction and state of the market, mining Q2 21. On October 15, we have a presentation by Metso Outotec, OUTOTEC, a supplier to the mining industry. So thank you very much to all who have joined us today, both those who have signed up as well as those that have viewed this webinar via Facebook. This is recorded, so if you want to see this thing replay, just go to the website of the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club on Facebook. So again, thank you all for being here today and for your continued support of the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club. So I now call on Ian to help me close with, I think, a photo op.
Yes, thank you very much, Leo. You've done a good job as usual. And Emmanuel Rubio, thank you very much. Excellent presentation and a lot of good comments that I've seen coming up in the chat. And well, excellent. Well done. Thank you all for participating. And we also look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Now, to close, we'd like to have a group photo. So if you can all turn your cameras on, and Job is there, he'll make the group photo for placement on our website. Hope you all had a good day and a good session, and I wish you a good afternoon and a good evening tonight. Thank you.
Instead of saying cheese, say aboitis.
Aboitis.
Okay, aboitis.
Aboitis.
You got everybody, Job?
As they turn on their camera. Okay,
Thank
one
you.
more. 1, 2, aboitis.
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 Okay.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.